I'm going to show you how to replace the oil pan on the 2008 Nissan Frontier. Similar process for other vehicles. If you find this content helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. So I went to change the oil on the Frontier, and when I went to tighten the drain pan bolt, I found that it just kept spinning. And I knew this was going to happen because when I undid it, some of the threads fell out of the pan. So one way or another, that pan got stripped out, and I got to replace the pan. So the first thing I got to do is take off this undercarriage protector, the pan protector. It's a couple of 1/2-inch bolts, 12 millimeter maybe, actually. And once that off, the pan is more exposed. It wasn't leaking, but I couldn't get a repair kit for the drain pan bolt. So it was easier just to buy the pan and get this repaired as soon as possible for me. So I took a 10 millimeter socket to loosen all the pan bolts after draining all the oil out. Like I said, I was doing an oil change, so all the oil's out. The only difficult bolts were these two behind here under the cross member. I didn't have to take the cross member out, just used an open head 10 millimeter socket wrench, and the other end, once I got it out a little bit, I could use the ratcheting end to get it out easier. And with the pan loose, I just stuck a couple bolts loosely back in and started hitting it loose. And I just gave it a couple good whacks with this, and eventually it came loose. Had to hit it a couple more times just to fully get it out. Like I said, there's just a couple bolts put back in. Then I took them out, removed the pan, and you could see the mess that we now have to clean up. All that RTV on the inner oil pan. This is the old oil pan. We don't need to worry about cleaning that up because we got the new pan. I just got it from the auto parts store. Now I need to scrape off this old RTV. I use a non-marring scrape tool. You don't want to burr that surface and make the RTV not stick well. And I also cleaned off the pan bolt hardware. It had a lot of RTV on it, so I just used the wire brush and a little screwdriver and cleaned it up. There they are, all nice and cleaned up. So with the mating surface cleaned up nicely, took a while with the scrape tool, but it got it all nice cleaned up. This is the lower pan. There's an upper and a lower. This is the lower pan, which is nice because it's rather small amount of mating surface. But I did clean out the pan bolt holes as there was a lot of RTV. I just did my best to try to clean them out with brake clean fluid and my little scrape tool. I didn't scrape hard with that little pick tool because I didn't want to damage the threads. But you can see I put the screws in and had a little difficulty, so I put them in and kept taking them out maybe 5 times, and it did drag out some of the old RTV, which was great. I don't recommend doing that a lot, as you could wear the threads, but I had to do what I had to do in this situation. So that mating surface is nice, cleaned up. I hit it with the brake fluid and cleaned it up. Now it's time for the RTV. The ultra gray Permatex RTV is what I chose. You could also use ultra black. It would have worked as well. This is what the service manual called for, or the equivalent. So I just went with it. Like I said, you could use the ultra black. That would seal up just fine. And you want a nice bead all the way around and around every hole. I kind of did a sloppy job with this, but it's, more is better than less. So it's going to seal up nice. Now, I put the bolts in hand tight until the RTV starts to squeeze out. This is very important. Put it in just hand tight first. Then wait about an hour, as the directions say, 60 minutes. Once 60 minutes passes, you can come back and torque them to spec. The torque spec is only 80 inch-pounds or 7 foot-pounds of torque about. So it was just a few rotations more, half rotation in some cases, and those were all torqued up nice. Again, put them in hand tight until the RTV oozes out, then wait an hour, then torque them down to spec. It shouldn't be that much tighter, but some of them did go around maybe a full rotation. And then after that is nice and sealed up, wait 24 hours at most. You could probably get away with it earlier, but fill it up with oil. Make sure that drain pan is torqued to spec. Don't want to strip it out again. 25 foot-pounds is what it is. So this is me tightening it up 24 hours after the RTV was applied. Now I'm putting the pan guard on. And it was just those 12mm bolts. So I'm just tightening them. While I'm tightening those down, I want to stress the importance of making sure those two surfaces, the pan and the mating surface, were very clean of all grease and oil, and that you applied the RTV evenly, and then you put it straight on. So as you can see, the oil filter was already installed, so I'm just going to fill it up with the oil. I had to add about an extra quart as opposed to a regular oil change because all that oil drained out overnight, taking the pan off. I ended up putting in about 6 to 6.5 quarts. Normally it takes about 5.5 to fill up, so it did take a little bit more, just a heads up. Now check the oil, fill it up a little bit more. It's going to take a long time to pump all that oil back, so after you fill it up, be sure to start the vehicle and then turn it off. Check the oil again. It's going to be low. Put the appropriate amount of oil in and check it again. So you can see this is the old pan and how it's all stripped out. Those pan bolts had nothing to hold on to. If you get a nice close-in view, you can see that it really wasn't holding it together. So here's the old pan that we took off. And if you follow the processes and you're careful with that RTV, it'll seal up and it won't leak. Be sure to follow directions on the RTV. So if you found this content helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, please leave a comment.